Let's get into some shite. Hi, folks. Welcome to Apocalyptic. Thank you for joining me. This is one of those special shows where it's actually a night show. You know, I got in the habit of doing shows during the morning, and tonight is a night show. Laid back. I feel like I need some Austin Powers kind of music going on. Not only that, but I got this really cute girl in the studio. Yeah. So I should have like some sexy music.
No, there's nothing.
Yeah, I think that there should be that. There should be like sexy music going on.
No, I don't do sexy.
We have a special guest. So I haven't done a whole lot of guests, but I've been trying to do guests. And this guest is sort of a cheat because you're built into the to the house.
You get me regardless.
Yeah. So Maria Fernandez, my lovely, beautiful wife, sexy wife.
No.
She makes me. Do I make you horny?
I don't feel comfortable talking about that.
Yeah, I do feel like there should be some Austin Powers stuff going on. No, so it's not cheating really. I wanted you to be a guest on the show, and I might want you to be a guest in the future. But again,
well, it depends on how bad I am today.
Yeah, well, that's true. We'll let people determine.
Get fired.
You could. We'll let people determine.
Okay.
This is weird because, so you were on my last podcast and we talked about death, and I asked you to be on this podcast and we're going to talk about death.
I'm your death guest.
You're like the harbinger of death.
It's true. I'm like Angela Lansbury.
I don't, and you're not a death person. You're not like a sad.
I could be a death person.
You're not like Winona Ryder in Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're a jolly person, laughy. You're jokey. You're a happy person.
I'm a roly-poly jolly person.
So, like all of the adjectives I just said, you're going to concentrate on jolly.
Well, you know, there's that whole like belly full of jelly and
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. Yeah, I mean, tis the season. So
I'm meaning it as like fun. You're a fun person.
Okay.
You're not a morbid person.
You don't know. Well, I listen to true crime to fall asleep.
Well, I know, but
That's pretty morbid.
I don't know. I wouldn't. You listen to that because of the science.
Well, yes, and the good storytelling. If there's good storytelling, I like that.
It's not just because you're fascinated with death, even though there might be a little bit of that. It's not like you just like death and be surrounded by death.
I like problem solvers. I like people who figure out how to fix things.
Yeah, like forensic files.
Right.
You want to know not just the crime part of it, but you want to know
the
how
investigation, how they fixed it.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not going to talk about that.
Right. Exactly.
We're going to talk about death.
Different death.
So, and there's a reason why, and I think people kind of know because I sort of addressed it, why I invited you on. So
because I'm an orphan.
You're an orphan. I'm trying to figure out the best way to kind of throw this out. But your mom just died.
Yes. November 4th. Over a month ago.
Yeah, I was going to say less than a month, but a little over a month.
Yeah.
And it was sudden. I mean,
sort of.
You knew it was coming a few months in advance,
right?
But not more than that.
Right. It wasn't as sudden as my dad's death.
Right. Which
was like, whoa.
Yeah, we won't go too far into that. That just happened, and you went through that experience. And I know you've gone through the death of both your parents and some friends, and most of us have, I suppose. Not everybody parents, but friends, and we're all kind of familiar with it.
Right.
I feel like you're qualified to kind of talk about it, and I want to talk about it as well.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was very fascinated by, so I liked your mom.
She adored you.
You don't, when you get married, you just kind of take what you get.
Yeah.
And it's always one of those things, it's like I always feel really bad because that's sort of the joke, the mother-in-law.
Oh yeah, that's such a trope, right?
Yeah.
That everyone hates the mother-in-law.
Right. And I always feel really bad about guys who have really bad mother-in-laws. But you know what? I don't think I know any of them.
Yeah.
Everybody that I know really likes their mother-in-law, or mostly likes their mother-in-law.
And honestly, I think that sometimes my mother liked you more than she liked me.
No. But I just find that, that's sort of a 1960s, 70s joke thing, the old mother-in-law that just...
Well, it's along the lines of, like, take my wife, please.
Yeah, but I grew up with that, So I guess the ultimate was like Bewitched, where the mother-in-law was an actual witch.
Right.
Who turned Darren into things.
Various things.
Yeah, and made him do things he didn't want to do.
She did have really great eyeshadow, though.
I loved Agnes
Dora.
Moorehead.
Yeah.
She was awesome.
She had great eyeshadow.
Yeah.
Great false eyelashes.
Yeah, great hair.
And muumuus.
And not only that, but and this is something I only discovered as I got older. She was gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
I mean, striking.
Mm-hmm.
She's just, and because when you're a kid, Elizabeth.
You don't want to bang your grandmother.
You hadn't seen my grandmother. But I just, when you're a kid, that's too old.
Yeah.
You're not attracted. And really, like Elizabeth Montgomery was like my
Way
mother.
too old. Yeah, totally.
She looked just like my mother. So that was a little too Oedipus for me. But
yeah.
But still, she's too old. And that's happened a lot as I've gotten older and watched shows that I watched when I was a kid. Like Mrs. Roper from Three's Company. When I look at her, she was attractive. What was her name? Audrey something. She was a very attractive actress, and she had to play this frumpy woman who was sexless. She didn't get any sex.
It wasn't that she was sexless in the asexual way. She was just
not getting it. She wanted it.
She wanted it.
Yeah.
She wanted some of Mr. Roper's hot, sweet love.
Why?
I don't know.
What is that?
There was nothing sexy.
Norman Fell was not a sex symbol.
No.
But I mean, there was not. Why was he always like rejecting her? There wasn't anything wrong with
dysfunction.
Her. I think we've gone down a wrong path here. Anyway,
I know. Yeah. I'm just saying.
So backing up, mother-in-laws.
Yeah.
That trope, and but I had a good one. Your mom was great, and in my series of failed marriages, I never had a bad mother-in-law.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, that's really good.
Well, my ex's mother-in-law was delightful. I loved her.
Your ex's mother-in-law was your mother, right? No,
my next ex's mother was my faux mother-in-law because we never got married.
Right.
But she was. Well, she is. She's lovely. She was actually one of the first people that reached out to me.
Yeah.
When my mom died, and she's lovely. Shout out to Annie Henderson. Boom.
Yeah. So, what I want to talk about is the process, because I'm very interested in it, and you and I have had some conversations about it that I find very interesting. So, one of the things that. Okay, let me back up. I'm going to start from here. At this point, after everything that's happened, how do you want to go?
How do I want to go?
Yeah. Your ideal scenario when it's time for you to die?
Quickly.
Do you want me holding your hand?
I don't care. I just want it to be fast.
You just want it to go really quick. And then what do you want me to do with your remains?
Absolutely cremate me.
Okay.
And
right there on the spot?
Well, not right there on the spot because there's homeowners insurance and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You'll get in trouble.
And laws.
Correct.
And I want that money. I don't want to do anything to screw that up.
Yeah, you don't want to do anything that's going to screw up the life insurance.
No.
Yeah, so you don't want to do that.
Be investigated.
No, we've seen way too much true crime in our household.
Well, you go to sleep by it.
I know. Yeah. I love it. So I just want to die quickly, preferably in my sleep without a long drawn out process.
Sure.
I want to have my affairs in order. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about is the things that because we don't talk about death in America.
Right.
We hate it. The language around, I mean, as you know, I work in healthcare, and so I see death all the time, or the dying process.
That's
And-
pretty bad healthcare then.
Well, no, I mean, death is part of living, right? And so
The
sometimes
last part.
it is,
Yeah.
but people act as if it's never going to come. And one of the hardest things that I deal with on a regular basis is seeing families who have not talked about death
Yeah.
and have not prepared themselves that their loved one is going to die.
Hmm.
And so they act like their 95-year-old loved one who has multiple issues is somehow going to get better miraculously like they were 5 years ago when they leave the hospital.
And really, that's kind of what I wanted to do
Yeah.
here, is talk about that process.
Yeah.
So I'm just very interested in with you going through what you feel like. So I think everybody says that. I want to die in my sleep
Right.
and old. You want to be old, or do you want to die like not like tomorrow?
Oh, I want to die way before how my mom got. I want to die while I can still like go to the bathroom by myself,
Why?
because that's horrible.
Well, I know, but that might not happen to you.
I know. I'm just saying that if you ask me how I want to die, I want to die fully continent.
Not incontinent.
Correct. And so, you know, my mom was on a catheter the last few weeks of her life. And even with us checking every day and all that, like at one point her catheter got loose and she was in her own stuff and we didn't realize it. We thought it was feces. And when the nurse came and she was like, oh my God, your mom is saturated. We had thought we were looking. And it suddenly became very clear to me when, you know, as you know, I get yelled at every day at work, but how often our nurses get yelled at by staff, by family members, because someone's been left in their own whatever for what they think is too long. And even with us checking every morning to see if mom was okay, suddenly when the bladder releases, it's just all over the place. And so the nurse shows up a couple hours later, you think that everything's fine, and then you just feel like you've been the most negligent family member ever. And so putting on my nurse administrator or healthcare administrator hat, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And so, but there's something intrinsically dehumanizing to be sitting there in your own waste
Sure.
for any length of time.
I feel like that, though, the key to all of this is discussion. So it's something that in our society, and I don't know if it's just our society or if it's just the global society, where we fear death so much that we just do not talk about it.
It's Western society. There's other cultures that are way more embracing of the transition process. And even within our own culture, you know, I've been talking to so many people at work who've been so lovely to me. And there's so many folks that I talk to on a regular basis where there's a whole community process around what they call the transition. And especially in Black and Hispanic cultures where it is part of the life process.
Yeah.
And so how everyone kind of comes together to help manage what they call the transition is very different than a very Western culture approach to it, which is very much like we've got to fight to the end. Even my mom, I mean, you know, talking to our oncologist, my sister and I were way more prepared for my mom's departure than my mother was. My
Right.
mother really felt like she was supposed to fight it. I knew from what I do in my work that when she got that diagnosis, we would be lucky if we had 3 months. She thought she had 3 years.
That's the way I would be.
Yeah, well, and
I'm
you would
so
be wrong.
stubborn. I know, but your mother was stubborn, but I would be the same way. I'd be like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not.
Yeah.
You can't tell me I'm.
But the
I'm gonna-"
problem with that is that if you're so focused on that as opposed to death is part of life, you miss out on really important conversations. You put them off because you don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
Right, and
And it also inhibits your ability to make decisions that need to be made. And that's the problem with us not talking about death, is that we aren't ready for it. Even with my sister and I talking about it because we were together for 6 weeks, there were things that kept on coming up that we had not thought of and that we had to now suddenly have to grapple.
well, I think there has to be a shift in how we as a society perceive death, because I think birth, for the most part,
We're cool with birth.
it's celebrated.
Yeah.
And you,
Except for the poop part.
I-
People don't like to talk about the poop part.
I detected this a little bit with your mom, but you didn't have a party, but it almost, part of it, when she was, fully cognizant, you kind of had this celebratory atmosphere.
It was like
Because you were
a
there.
6-week-long slumber party.
Yeah. And so that's kind of my thought is, if we're going to celebrate birth, I feel like we should celebrate death the same way. The problem is that death often comes in tragic ways.
Mm-hmm.
So not everybody dies in their sleep. Not everybody knows they're going to die.
Right.
And a lot of times it's the death comes in a very traumatic ways, and you don't want to celebrate that.
Right.
And you can't be prepared for that a lot of times.
Right.
But I do feel like that there needs to be a shift in our society and how we think about death, so that we're thinking about it through most of our lives
Correct.
and preparing for it.
And not waiting. I mean, you and I talked about me going up there and saying, next time I go up there, I need to make sure I capture all those stories. I'd been saying that for the last year and a half, trying to capture all of her stories and record them. And I got up there, and that was completely what I prepared to do. And that night that she ended up going into the hospital, that precipitated everything else going bad, that was the night that I was going to sit down, and that was the night that we ended up in the emergency department. And from that point forward, there was never those conversations again. She wasn't capable of it.
Yeah.
And so those moments of like, if you want to record stories, if you want to remember things that only this loved one will remember, do it now. Don't wait. Don't think that there's going to be that perfect NPR or Hallmark moment where you're going to sit down and capture it all. Do it while you can, because you're not going to have time later.
I think it all has to be that way. I mean, the dialogue has to start when you're young.
Yeah.
And I feel like that it needs isn't it true that we guard the concept of death too much from children?
Correct.
And a child should learn early on that I know it's going to cause a lot of fear. I mean, a lot of kids, when the first time they start realizing they're going to die, that's sort of like begins their nightmare of life.
Right. But I mean, that's actually part of life too.
Mm-hmm.
And so to create that kind of sacred space for children to understand how that works. I remember when I was a little kid, and my Aunt Eileen, and I don't even know if she was technically I think she was my cousin, but she was this cool old lady, like loved her to death, 89 years old. And I remember her playing cards with us up on the upstairs foyer of our house. It was like 6 of us little kids, and ranging between like 7 and teenagers, and we were all playing Go Fish or or gin rummy or something. But she was sprawled out on the floor with us playing, and I just loved Aunt Eileen. And when she passed away a couple years later, I remember my mom saying, well, no one ever really dies as long as you keep on telling their stories.
Yeah.
And I remember that has always stayed with me, that idea of you keep them alive through the stories that we tell about them. And that was such a great learning opportunity. It was probably the first time where, as a kid, I learned to accept death as like, it's just part of the process, and it's how we live in the moment that makes the difference.
But you've been slammed several times. So like your best friend died.
Yes.
Which was the hardest, your parents or your best friend? I know that's a weird question, but like psychically.
They were all pretty awful. The one that I have the most residual, obviously with mom just going.
Yeah.
How the long-term effects of that will be different.
Right.
They've all been very different in terms of how they affected me. The one that I'm the least comfortable with is with Morgan.
Yeah.
Mostly because I think that she was killed.
Yeah.
And I don't have a way to prove that. But I think that she was killed.
Okay.
And so knowing that she never really got that justice.
Yeah.
Has always sat poorly with me.
I've been through quite a few deaths. Most of them have been older people. But I had a really good friend who died. She just turned 30.
Yeah.
And it just didn't seem fair. And I don't know, it's the finality of death, just I can't accept.
Yeah.
And you have to.
You have to. But I mean, there's the finality and there's the non-finality, right? And, we've talked about this before. I think when we first started dating, we were talking about favorite movies. And there was a movie, which the name I can't remember at all. It had John Hurt and Sam Waterston in it. And I think it's called Mind Walk or something. And they're talking, and it really was that perfect movie to see when I was going through a process of trying to was questioning my faith, because I was, of course, raised Catholic, and the realization that I was an atheist. But there was a talk about how, when we die, our molecules, as we decompose, go back out into the universe, and we just basically become part of the air and the dirt and the water and the world around us. And that was the first understanding of death that made sense to me.
Yeah.
But it was also the closest understanding of how I see spirituality. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing that has given me the most comfort. When I lost my dad, that was the thing that brought me comfort too, is that knowledge that he's still in the world around us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that those are those things that when you deal with those traumatic losses that you can take comfort in. But I mean, the reality is you just don't know when your time is going to be. Well,
as human beings, we're attached to things that we shouldn't be attached to.
Right.
So,
totally.
Like Buddhists, part of one of the practices of Buddhism is to actually meditate on your own death.
Right.
Just see it, feel it, just what it's like. And I did that like when I was younger, and it freaked me out. So I don't fear. I think I have the there's a little anxiety about the process of death, but I don't fear death. And I don't believe that. I believe there is a part of all life that continues. Mm-hmm. I do not believe the ego survives. I don't believe that me and anything that can be called me will continue to go on. I believe there is, for lack of a better word, I'll just say energy, and that energy it never leaves. It's always here, and it might take the form of anything, but there's no memory of me. There's no memory of this ego or anything like that. So I just feel like when I'm gone, I'm gone. That's it. It's, right. I won't have any recollection. Now, I don't know that that's true. No one does.
Right.
Maybe we know it.
I think the only thing that I worry about is what I've seen in having to clean up the affairs of people that I've lost, which is making decisions of what to do with things.
All this stuff in my studio, you got to do something with.
It's going to go.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
It's goodwill in the dumpster.
But see, that's the weird thing is the how value switches when you die.
Right.
Because this stuff, not all of it, but most of it has a certain amount of value. So like that box right there is full of years and years and years of cartoons that I did. I mean, tons of them. And there's a value to that of me. And what happens? Does it go in the fire when I'm dead? No one wants any of those cartoons.
I don't want that, but I want your sea monkeys. Because I just posted recently.
Sea monkey bobblehead?
The sea monkey bobble, because this, way more than Santa, because I was never invested in Santa.
Yeah.
But when I realized that sea monkeys were not what they were on the little back of the comic book,
right,
it devastated me.
Speaking of death, they die really fast. Sea monkeys do.
I don't want to know that.
They do. I've had a lot of sea monkeys, and they go really, really quick.
Oh God.
But I remember my grandmother when she died, and then they had like an estate sale. And then I remember going through and seeing all of this stuff that they were selling, and like some things that I had gotten her for Christmas were in. It was a weird shift of value.
Right.
It's just like you can't get rid of that. That's something that I remember my grandmother having. It's just like it's this weird thing that you suddenly have to deal with a complete shift of of what you and everybody else considers valuable.
Right.
And it's going to happen to everyone. You can't take any of this stuff. I really thought a whole lot about it recently.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about, my last podcast was about it. It's just like the last episode, it was just about things that you value, that you save, that one day will be worth nothing.
Yeah.
Including your body.
Well, and what's really interesting is what it will have meaning to other people. So, just going through my mom's stuff of what was important to save and what was not. And, there were some things that we had to let go of because we just didn't have the space for it. We just didn't have the ability. But the things that were actually important for me to hang on to were so weird and little, like little decorations that were from a tree. There's no monetary value. I'd much rather have that decoration that I had as a kid than something that has, a ton of financial value. It's not because there's a meaning to it, but you don't always know what the meaning is going to be to other people. That's kind of the weird thing.
I don't feel like we've solved anything here.
I'm not done talking. Are we done talking?
Huh?
Are we done talking?
No, I'm just saying, I feel like we started off with a goal, and I wanted to talk about death, and I kind of wanted to talk about the problems, how we deal with death in society, and what we might be able to do about it. I don't feel like we have a solution. I don't think nothing. I mean, maybe individually we should all think about it. I like the idea of meditating on our own death. I feel like that's going to have a lot to do with it, and just spending time with people who have died or like going through death with other people is definitely a huge experience that is going to change.
One of the things that came out of this last experience with Mom, and this is one of the things I think is really, really important, is making sure that you're talking about it with the people who are invested in that person's life and death, to make sure you're on the same page. Like with the whole discussion around Mom having chemo or not, I knew it was a terrible idea. Like it would kill her, and it almost did. And so by the cessation of chemo, we were allowed to have a whole lot of time with her where she was actually feeling pretty good because she wasn't having to fight this poison going through her body. But it was because we had also had a lot of conversations about what did we want her last time on earth to look like in terms of her interactions, our relationships, our ability to interact with her. And I think that having that really clear sense of this is what is important to us is really important. So people do need to talk about that. The other thing that I think that really came out of the conversation, just the process that came, I want to give a shout out to Janie from Our Lady of Peace Hospice. She was basically our death doula. And when we went through those last 2 weeks, she was so lovely and kind, and she walked us through, this is what's happening to your mom. But even as she was talking about what was happening, even though she'd never actually had a conversation with my mom, because by the time she came on the scene, Mom was not responsive, she would talk to Mom about everything that she was doing to her, when we were changing her diaper, when she was checking her catheter, when we were doing all the things that we had to do. She always would talk to Mom about, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it. She was so respectful in such a beautiful way. And it really, there's this whole concept that I just found out about because, I work with Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies in Georgia around doula training. And there's actually a thing called a death doula. And these people help families navigate the transition into death and what to think about. What are the questions you're supposed to ask? What to anticipate? And one of the things that my sister and I really experienced that last week was the humor of death. And I don't think people talk about that very much because it's all very serious, right? And it is very serious. It's terrible. There was at one point in where we knew that she was going to go. And I talked to her about her to a friend of mine who worked in our oncology team at work. And she's like, she probably has about 3 days left. So we planned around that. Well, 3 days came and went, and she was just lingering on. She hadn't eaten, she hadn't slept, she hadn't had anything to drink, but she was still persisting along. And so, she has a pacemaker, and they were supposed to have disabled the pacemaker when she left the hospital, but she wanted to stick around until after the holidays because she thought she was going to get through the holidays. And once we realized that was just not going to happen, there's no sense in keeping the pacemaker on. So we we had to go through this whole process to get it turned off. And then we also had to remove the oxygen because, of course, and that was a really hard decision for me just because, I'm asthmatic, and it was the right decision to do because we were perpetually keeping her around when she really didn't need to. And so that was the decision on Monday, and it took until about Tuesday for us to get there. And when we, ended it all, we, her numbers tanked, and all of a sudden, like an hour later, all came back up like normal, as though she never needed a pacemaker a day in her life. And there was, I don't know from how many of your listeners remember Buffy the Vampire Slayer when Paul Rubens is dying at the end.
All of them.
So,
everyone remembers that.
Right? Yeah. So he's just like, you think he's dead. And then it's just like, but wait. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was 100% like that for the last 3 days of her life.
Keep popping back.
I swear to God, like Susanna and I just started laughing every once in a while. We're just like, seriously, Mom? Like, are you kidding me?
Just get a hammer.
Yeah.
A baseball bat.
And we just looked at each other like, are you, like, this woman is so stubborn.
Yeah.
And so we would, all right, we'll just go on our, and so, then we were told, well, sometimes and this is a fact that people who study death, that a significant portion of parents, and especially moms, will not die in front of their children. They'll wait until their children leave because they still have that sense of responsibility as their parent to not do these things from their children. And there's so many stories about, and even my grandfather, when he had Alzheimer's, he waited until we had left the night, and then he died almost within an hour after we had left. So we're like, all right, we'll fake Mom out. So Wednesday night, we all decided to go out to eat. So the whole family went out. We went out and had a big dinner. And we all went in and made a big production. Mom, we're going to be gone for a few hours. You're going to be fine. We had a sitter come. And we were convinced, all right, well, now we've all left the space. She's going to finally let go of her mortal coil.
Yeah.
We come back, she's still just trucking along because she knew we'd be back in 2 hours. So then Susanna called Papa to come retrieve her. And I was like, well, that's not going to work because that's going to still be another 24 hours because he has to change the oil. And he was always a dilly day like you. Like there was always, I forgot his glasses, forgot his wallet. There's something, and he's just going to be late when he gets there. And so eventually she finally passed away on Friday afternoon. But it was just this up and down thing where we would have moments of tears, and then other times where we're just sitting here waiting, and other times where we would just start laughing because I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. And
that whole process is such a weird thing, but no one ever talks about that.
Well, I think that's the key is more communication. And what you're telling me about the hospice person, I think that, that's just somebody who's experienced with death. That's someone who's confronted it.
Yeah.
And I think that shows no one wants to go through it. But the reality is we're all going to go through it.
Yeah.
No one's going to escape it. And since no one's going to escape it, I feel like we should face it head on.
Totally.
You can't really predict what you're going to get, how it's going to happen. But I think you have to know that it is going to happen. You have to take care of things with your loved ones. You have to, you got to clean up your crap. I'm trying to clean up my crap. I don't want to leave this stuff with you.
Yeah.
But I just don't know that I probably should have started when I was 27.
Well, we got rid of a lot of stuff when we moved you down here, but there's a lot of stuff.
I've accumulated more. I don't know. I feel like that. I guess we stop here.
Okay.
Is this it?
That's fine. Yeah.
I mean, we could go on and on and on, but I just feel like, I think we said what the important things is, which is just communication about it.
Well, and write it down.
Yeah.
Do your advance. So this is just my plug for someone to get the stuff done. Get your advance directives down. Make sure that you have all of your passwords and accounts in one section so that when the people who have to clean up your affairs have to deal with it, they know where to find it.
We haven't done that. You and I haven't done that.
You and I have a lot of work to do, my friend.
Yeah. I don't like to share my passwords.
I know.
I'm taking them with me.
You can't do that.
No, I will.
I have to close down your stuff.
No, because you'll see all my porn and everything.
I already know about your porn, honey.
How do you know about that? You don't know about my porn. All right, that's all we're going to talk about. That's all we're going to do. Everyone, thank you for listening to it. It wasn't that morbid, was it?
I don't know.
I thought it was kind of factual.
I just think that get over it.
Yeah.
Get over it. Talk about death. It's a thing.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do on the show.
It's a thing. Just talk about it.
It's the elephant in the room. It's the thing we don't want to talk about.
Babies about it.
Well, all right. So here's your chance if you want to weigh in on this and tell us what you think about it. You call the listener line at 678-348-0008. Let me know what you think if you want to do that. Or text it. You can text the same number, and I'll put you on the podcast.
Cool.
Yeah. Or you could send me email, rick@apocalyptic.com.
Okay.
Tell me your stuff. Yeah. I'm on Facebook. I'm on all the social medias. Those social media things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about death there. Thanks for being on the show. It was awkward. I know how to talk to you. I don't know how to talk to you behind a microphone.
I can't.
It's
really
weird.
see
It's weird
you.
to me. The timing is off.
Is it?
I think it is.
I think that we were fine.
Oh, I'm not saying we weren't fine. We were fine. I feel weird. I don't know your timing.
Oh.
I'm just getting used to my own.
I mean, I don't know. I just talk.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, you did a good job.
Thanks.
And I think we.
Should I feel bad about myself?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. How's your Christmas going?
Wait, my
This is
Christmas?
Billy Idol. I want to wish you a happy holiday.
Oh,
and a
Billy
very
Idol.
Merry New Year.
Billy Idol, wishing you a Merry Christmas. How's your Christmas? Good?
I mean, my mom's dead.
I don't want to ruin it by dying before Christmas. That would
Please don't.
totally blow.
That would totally suck.
Yeah.
I would not be happy with that.
But so far, you're doing all right, right?
I mean, it's cool.
It's an adjustment. You got to get used to things. It'll never be the same.
No, but I need to make cookies. I think that'll make me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, stress baking is always helpful.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure you're feeling all festive and
Yeah, twinkle light.
making the best of it.
I'm going to cry a lot,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to also enjoy the twinkle lights.
Okay.
So that's how things work.
Yeah, cry in the twinkle lights. That's what life's about.
And listen to murder.
All right. Well, I'm going to shut it down.
Bye.
All right. We'll see you all. This is a Thursday show.
Yeah.
Everybody, we'll see you Monday. All right. Thank you for being on the show. You're the cutest guest so far.
You are.
You.